That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The rain came down in steady sheets over Fort Harlan, turning the parade ground into a slick mosaic of mud and standing water. Sergeant Elena Vasquez stood at attention in the downpour, her camouflage uniform clinging to her frame like a second skin. The air smelled of wet earth and diesel from the idling Humvees lined up along the perimeter. At her side, her canine partner, Rex, a sleek German shepherd with fur matted dark from the rain, sat motionless, his ears perked forward despite the chill seeping into his joints. Elena's hand rested lightly on his harness, a silent anchor in the disciplined chaos of the morning formation. "Platoon, attention!" The command barked from Captain Harlan's position at the front, his voice cutting through the patter of rain like a blade. The unit snapped to, boots splashing in unison as 200 soldiers formed ranks under the grey sky. Elena's platoon, the 3rd Security Force, specialized in base perimeter defense and explosive detection. They were the quiet guardians, the ones who patrolled the shadows while the infantry chased headlines. Ranks mattered here, sergeant to captain, handler to handler, and Elena had earned her stripes through years of flawless drills and deployments. Rex had been her shadow since his puppy days at Lackland, their bond forged in the repetition of commands: sit, search, guard. The captain paced the line, his rain poncho rustling with each step. "This is no field day, people. We're simulating a breach scenario. Handlers, your dogs are the first line, eyes and noses where ours fail. Vasquez, your lead on the sweep. Keep it tight." Elena nodded sharply, her response a crisp, "Yes, sir," no elaboration. That was the way of it. Orders flowed down the chain like water through pipes, and deviation invited scrutiny. She glanced at Rex, who met her eyes with that steady, knowing gaze. He sensed her tension, the subtle shift in her posture from the night's poor sleep. But he stayed put, loyal as the rain. The exercise kicked off with the wail of a siren, simulating an alert. Soldiers fanned out toward the mock perimeter, a chain-link fence rigged with simulated IED markers buried in the mud. Elena and Rex moved first, her boots sinking into the softened ground as she gave the signal. "Such, Rex. Search." He bounded forward, nose low, weaving through the underbrush with mechanical precision. The rain blurred her vision, but she trusted his instincts. The way his tail flicked at a false positive, the low rumble when he hit pay dirt. Behind them, the platoon followed, radios crackling with position reports. "Alpha team, clear on Sector 2. Bravo, holding east flank." It was midway through the sweep that the disruption came, subtle at first, like a crack in the foundation. Private Ellis, a fresh transfer from stateside admin, lagged behind his assigned handler team. He was built like a linebacker, but moved with the awkwardness of someone more at home behind a desk. As Elena signaled Rex to circle back, Ellis stumbled into their path, his poncho snagging on a bush. "Damn mutt's slowing us down," he muttered, loud enough for the line to hear. He kicked at a puddle near Rex, sending water splashing toward the dog's paws. Rex didn't flinch, but Elena did, her jaw tightening under the brim of her cap. "Private, eyes front," she said evenly, her voice carrying the weight of her rank without raising in volume. Ellis straightened, but his eyes lingered on Rex with a smirk that spoke of resentment, not respect. "Just saying, Sarge, these exercises drag when you're babysitting furballs." The words hung in the air, drawing sidelong glances from the platoon. Handlers didn't take kindly to that. K9 units were integrated, not optional. But Ellis was under Lieutenant Grant's wing, an officer known for overlooking minor infractions to keep morale high. Grant, standing nearby, chuckled softly. "Ease up, Ellis. Vasquez knows her dog's place." Elena's grip on Rex's leash tightened. The dog's ears flicked back, sensing the shift, but she kept her face neutral. Orders were orders. Challenging a superior mid-drill could mean a write-up, maybe worse. Still, as they pressed on, the rain intensifying, she felt the first stir of that old tension, the pull between protocol and the quiet truth she'd learned in the field. Rex wasn't just a tool. He was her read on the world, the one who alerted to threats before the intel reports caught up. Last deployment in Kandahar, he'd saved her squad from a hidden cache, his nose cutting through the dust where human eyes saw nothing. By the time the all-clear sounded, the platoon regrouped under the overhang of the armory, steam rising from their soaked gear. Captain Harlan debriefed briskly. Times logged, detections confirmed. Elena knelt to dry Rex with a towel from her pack, his wet fur cool against her palms. "Good boy," she murmured, low enough for only him to hear. Ellis hovered nearby, shaking out his boots, his earlier comment forgotten in the routine. But as she stood, Lieutenant Grant approached, his expression all business. "Vasquez, a word. That lag from Ellis, your dog's pace threw off the timing. Log it for review." She met his gaze, water dripping from her helmet. Sir Rex cleared the sector in under 5. The delay was on the private's footing. Grant's eyes narrowed. "Chain of command. Sergeant, report it straight. No embellishments." It was a small thing, but in the rigid world of Fort Harlan, small things built cases. Eleanor saluted, watching him walk away, the rain drumming on the tin roof like distant gunfire. That night, as the base settled into quiet, Elena lay in her bunk, Rex curled at her feet. The shelter, a modular unit for off-duty handlers, hummed with the low voices of her team swapping stories over MREs. But she couldn't shake the incident. Duty meant obedience, yet something in Ellis's casual disdain echoed louder than the rain. Rex shifted, his nose nudging her hand, as if reminding her. Trust went both ways. Outside, the storm raged on, masking the first whispers of what was to come, a test not of drills, but of the bonds that held them all together. In the days that followed, the routine ground on, dawn PT, weapons calls, perimeter walks. Elena threw herself into it, her focus sharpening on Rex's training cues. But Ellis's presence lingered like a shadow. During a joint exercise with the civilian contractors, building a new shelter for displaced families on base, he was assigned to assist with perimeter security. The contractors, a mix of engineers and aid workers, had arrived with trucks loaded for the modular units, their chatter light against the soldiers' clipped commands. Elena and Rex patrolled the site, the dog alert to any unfamiliar scents amid the lumber and concrete. It was then, under a sky threatening more rain, that the real fracture appeared. One of the contractors, a wiry man named Torres, approached Ellis with a question about access points. "Private, you got eyes on the east gate?" Ellis waved him off, his tone sharp. "Handle it yourself. I'm not your guide dog." The word landed like a slap, and Elena, overhearing from her post, felt Rex tense beside her. She stepped forward, voice steady. "Private, assist the civilian. That's the order." Ellis turned, his face flushing under the bill of his cap. "Sarge, these civvies are slowing everything. Why pull me for babysitting?" The contractors paused, tools in hand, the air thick with unspoken tension. Grant, overseeing from afar, didn't intervene. Elena held her ground, rain beginning to spot the ground. "Because it's the mission. Secure the site, Ellis." He complied, but the resentment simmered, his movements jerky as he directed Torres. As the day wore on, the shelter took shape, a simple structure for families relocated after a nearby flood. Children played at the edges, their laughter a rare sound amid the base's discipline. One girl, no older than 8, with braids sodden from the drizzle, wandered too close to the perimeter. Rex spotted her first, a soft whine escaping as he strained toward the fence. Elena called out gently, "Hey, little one, stay back. Safety zone." The girl froze, then tilted her head, her eyes widening. But it wasn't Elena she saw. It was the dog, or perhaps the voice echoing something familiar. By evening, as the crew wrapped up, Elena stood watch outside the half-built shelter, rain now falling in earnest. Rex sat beside her, unmoving, his loyalty a quiet bulwark. She didn't know it yet, but that moment, the child's hesitant step forward, the recognition in her voice calling out, "Mama," would unravel everything. For now, it was just another duty in the downpour, the chain of command holding firm against the storm. The rain intensified as the work crew packed away their tools, the modular shelter's frame standing skeletal against the dimming sky. Elena shifted her weight, boots planted in the mud, her poncho offering scant protection from the chill that seeped through her layers. Rex remained at her side, his breath steady and even, a counterpoint to the distant rumble of thunder rolling over the base. The perimeter lights flickered on early, casting long shadows across the site, where families would soon find temporary refuge. Displaced by the floodwaters that had swallowed low-lying towns nearby, they were civilians caught in the periphery of military life. Vulnerable, yet under the army's watchful eye. "Perimeter secure, ma'am," Private Ramirez reported over the radio, his voice crackling through the static. Eleanor keyed her mic. "Copy, Ramirez. Maintain visual on the north approach. Routine protocol, eyes on every angle, no gaps for opportunists." The contractors had cleared out, their trucks rumbling away down the access road, leaving the air thick with the scent of fresh-cut lumber and wet canvas. Elena scanned the area, her gaze lingering on the chain-link fence that separated the site from the open fields. Rex's nose twitched, lifting briefly toward a faint whiff of something foreign, perhaps the wild rabbits that skirted the edges at dusk. From the direction of the temporary holding area, where the families waited in tents, came the muffled sounds of evening, children calling to one another, the low murmur of parents sorting through meager belongings. Elena had seen it before, relief operations blending into base logistics, soldiers doubling as stewards. It wasn't their core mission, but orders from higher up emphasized community ties, especially after natural disasters hit close to home. Captain Harlan had briefed the platoon that morning. "We're not just defenders, we're the line between chaos and order." Elena took it to heart, her role extending beyond Rex's alerts to the human elements that didn't always fit neatly into formations. A small figure emerged from the tent line, darting through the rain like a shadow detached from the storm. The girl from earlier, 8, maybe 9, with rain-slicked braids and a too large jacket flapping around her knees, approached the fence hesitantly. She clutched a stuffed bear under one arm, its fur darkened by the downpour. Elena straightened, her hand instinctively tightening on Rex's leash. "Hey, stay on your side, kiddo. It's not safe over here." The words were firm but gentle, carrying over the patter of rain. Rex tilted his head, his ears perking at the child's approach, but he held his sit command without a twitch. The girl stopped a few feet from the wire, her eyes wide and searching. Water streamed down her face, mixing with what might have been tears, though it was hard to tell in the gloom. "Are you the one who talks to the dog?" she asked, her voice small against the wind. Elena paused, surprised. Earlier, during the patrol, she'd given Rex a quiet command in Spanish, a habit from her upbringing, one that slipped out when the drills felt too mechanical. "Busca," she'd murmured then, "search," and Rex had responded with a subtle nod. The girl must have overheard. Piecing together fragments from the day's noise, Elena knelt slightly, keeping Rex between them as a buffer. "That's me, Sergeant Vasquez, and this is Rex. He's helping keep everyone safe." The dog leaned forward a fraction, his dark eyes fixed on the child, sensing the uncertainty in her posture. No bark, no alert, just that quiet assessment that made him more than a tool. The girl edged closer. pressing her small hand against the fence. "He looks like my old dog, back home, before the water took everything." Her voice cracked on the last word, and she glanced back toward the tents, where a woman's silhouette hovered in the entrance, calling softly. Elena felt a pull in her chest, the kind that duty trained you to suppress. Protocol dictated maintaining distance, security first. No personal interactions that could blur lines, but the rain blurred everything anyway, turning the world into a haze of grey. "What's your name?" she asked against her better judgment. "Lila," the girl replied, a tentative smile breaking through. "You sound like my auntie. She used to sing to the dogs when they were scared." Eleanor's throat tightened. Her own voice, honed by years of clear commands, carried echoes of her family's border town roots, warm cadences that didn't belong in the crisp English of military briefings. Before Elena could respond, Lila's hand slipped through a gap in the fence, reaching toward Rex. The dog didn't move, but his tail gave a single, soft wag. Permission, in his language. "Can he—" Lila started, but a sharp voice cut through from the tents. "Lila, get back here!" It was the mother, hurrying forward with an umbrella that did little against the gale. Elena stood, signaling Rex to heel. "Time to go, Lila. Stay dry." The girl lingered a moment, her eyes locking on Eleanor's with an intensity that spoke of recognition beyond words. Then she turned, splashing back through the mud. As the mother scooped Lila up, murmuring apologies through the rain, Eleanor turned away, her focus snapping back to the patrol route. But the exchange lingered, a small rift in the armor of routine. Rex nudged her leg, as if acknowledging the shift, his wet fur brushing her calf. She scratched behind his ears absently. "Good watch, boy." The bond was unspoken, built on cues and trust, no room for sentiment, yet it anchored her when the orders felt too rigid. Word of the interaction spread quietly through the evening chow line, handlers swapping notes over steaming trays of chow. "Vasquez let a civvy kid pet the dog? Grant's gonna log that," Ramirez muttered, keeping his voice low. Elena overheard, but said nothing. Her tray balanced steadily as she moved to her seat. Lieutenant Grant was across the mess hall, conversing with Ellis, who laughed at something, too loud, drawing glances. The private's earlier resentment hadn't faded. If anything, the day's frustrations had amplified it. During the shelter build, he'd grumbled about wasting time on flood rats, his words carrying just far enough to unsettle the contractors. By lights out, Elena lay in the handler's barracks, the rain a constant drum on the roof. Rex settled at the foot of her bunk, his breathing a rhythmic reminder of loyalty unmarred by rank or doubt. But sleep evaded her. The girl's voice echoed, familiar, pleading, and with it came the weight of what duty demanded versus what conscience whispered. Outside, the storm showed no signs of letting up, mirroring the gathering tension within the unit. Ellis's disdain, Grant's oversight, the fragile line between security and humanity, it all pressed in, testing the chains that bound them. The next morning broke with a fragile calm. The rain reduced to a mist that clung to the air like fog over the parade ground. Formation assembled under clearing skies, boots squelching in the softened earth. Captain Harlan's briefing was terse. "Shelters operational. Security details rotate. Vasquez, you're on day shift with Rex. Keep the civvies contained." Elena saluted, her mind already mapping the patrols. But as the platoon dispersed, Ellis fell in beside her, his stride matching hers toward the site. "Heard you made a friend yesterday, Sarge. Careful, those kids might think we're soft." She kept her eyes forward, voice level. "Focus on your sector, Private. That's the order." He chuckled, but there was an edge to it, a challenge unspoken. Rex trotted between them, oblivious to the undercurrent, his nose questing ahead. At the shelter, families milled about, settling into the new space, mattresses unrolled, lanterns flickering to life. Lila spotted Elena from the doorway, waving shyly. The sergeant nodded back, a brief acknowledgement before turning to her post. As the day unfolded, the mist lifted, revealing the base in sharp relief, tents stark against the horizon. The hum of generators underscoring every movement. Elena and Rex circled the perimeter, the dogs' alerts routine, false positives from construction debris, nothing more. But midway through, a cry pierced the air from inside the shelter. Rex reacted first, bolting toward the sound with a low growl, leash taut in Elena's grip. She followed, radioing it in. Possible disturbance at the family unit. Responding. Pushing through the entrance, the scene unfolded in the dim light. Lila huddled in a corner, tears streaming, while her mother argued with a contractor over ration allotments. Ellis stood nearby, arms crossed, his presence unhelpful. "Told you to wait your turn," he snapped at the woman, his tone laced with impatience. The mother, exhausted and soaked from an earlier errand, fired back. "We've waited days. This isn't right." Chaos rippled, other families watching, murmurs rising. Elena stepped in, Rex at her side like a sentinel. "Private, stand down, ma'am. Let's sort this." Her voice cut through calm authority, restoring order. She directed the mother to the supply log, Rex sitting alert as if guarding the fragile piece. Ellis shot her a glare but complied, retreating to the door. Lila clung to her mother's leg, peeking up at Elena with that same recognition. "Thank you," the girl whispered, as the tension eased. Outside, as Elena resumed patrol, Grant approached, his expression stern under the emerging sun. "Vasquez, that intervention unnecessary. Ellis was handling it." She met his gaze evenly. "Sir, the situation escalated. Containment was priority." He nodded curtly, but the warning hung. Chain of command, no deviations. Rex pressed against her, sensing the strain, his loyalty a silent vow amid the shifting sands of duty and doubt. The shelter stood firm now, but the real storm brewed within the ranks, waiting to break. The afternoon sun broke through the clouds in fits and starts, casting erratic light over the shelter's canvas walls as Elena completed her circuit. Rex padded alongside her, his paws leaving faint prints in the drying mud, the earlier mist giving way to a humid warmth that carried the faint tang of diesel from the idling generators. Families moved about inside the structure, mothers folding blankets, fathers repairing a leaky corner with tape from the supply kit, while children darted between cots, their energy undimmed by the displacement. Elena's post demanded vigilance, eyes on the entrances, ears tuned to any shift in the rhythm of voices. Rex's nose worked overtime, sifting through the medley of scents, cooking spices from a makeshift stove, the earthy residue of flood-soaked clothes. Private Ellis lingered at the far end of the perimeter, ostensibly checking the fence line, but more often than not, pausing to chat with Ramirez, his laughter carrying too freely for a secured sight. Elena noted it in passing, logging the time on her notepad. 1400 hours, all clear. Protocol required rotations every hour, but Grant had paired Ellis with her detail to build cohesion. Who does he'd put it in the morning huddle? Cohesion felt like a stretch. Ellis's glances her way held the same edge from the rain-soaked drill days earlier, a mix of deference and disdain that chafed against the unit's unspoken code. As Elena rounded the east corner, a low whine from Rex pulled her up short. The dog stared toward the shelter's open flap, where Lila sat cross-legged on the ground, tracing patterns in the dirt with a stick. The girl's mother was inside, speaking in hushed tones to a volunteer from the aid convoy, their words lost to the hum of conversation. Lila looked up, spotting Elena, and her face lit with that tentative brightness again. She scrambled to her feet, clutching her bear, and took a step forward, then stopped, as if remembering the fence between them. Elena signaled Rex to sit, her own posture remaining formal. "All good here," she called softly, more to the group than the child. Lila nodded, but her eyes didn't leave Elena's face. "You talk like her," the girl said, her voice carrying clear in the lull, "like my mama, the songs, before she went away." The words hung, simple yet weighted, drawing a few heads from inside the shelter. Elena felt the subtle shift, the way conversations paused, the volunteer's glance sharpening. She kept her expression neutral, hand steady on Rex's harness. Personal histories weren't shared on duty. They were compartmentalized, locked away like gear in the armory. Before she could redirect, Ellis sauntered over from his post, boots crunching on gravel. "Kid's got an imagination," he said, loud enough for the shelter to hear. "Probably heard some radio drama. Sarge, you spoiling the watch with chit-chat?" His tone was light, but the smirk undercut it, turning the moment into something performative. Ramirez, trailing behind, shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. Inside, the mother emerged, wiping her hands on her apron, her eyes flicking between Ellis and Elena with wary assessment. "Private, return to your sector," Elena ordered, her voice clipped and even, the kind that brooked no debate in the field. Ellis straightened, but not before muttering under his breath, "Always the hero with the pooch." Rex's ears flicked back, a low rumble vibrating in his chest, not aggressive, but alert to the discord. The dog had picked up on Ellis's patterns before. The casual shoves during gear checks, the offhand remarks that tested boundaries. Elena ignored the jab, turning back to Lila. "Stay close to your mom, okay? Rex and I have work to do." But Lila didn't retreat. Instead, she pressed closer to the fence, her small fingers curling around the links. "Sing it," the one about the river. Her plea was soft, insistent, eyes pleading as if Elena held the key to some lost comfort. The request pierced, echoes of Elena's own childhood melodies, sung in Spanish to calm neighborhood strays during storms back in El Paso. She'd hummed fragments to Rex during long nights in the barracks, a private ritual to ease his post-mission tremors. Now, exposed in the open air, it felt like a breach, a crack in the professional facade. The volunteer stepped forward, sensing the awkwardness. "Lila, come on now. Let the soldiers do their job." But the girl shook her head, tears welling. "It's her voice. I know it." Chaos stirred subtly. A father inside murmuring to another, "What's this about?" Ellis crossed his arms, watching with thinly veiled amusement. While Ramirez radioed a neutral update to avoid escalation, Elena's mind raced. Protocol screamed disengage, report any civilian attachment as a security risk. Yet the child's desperation mirrored the vulnerability Rex had shown after a close call in training, that raw need for reassurance beyond commands. "Ma'am," Elena said to the mother, keeping her tone measured. "We can arrange a handler demo later if approved. For now..." But Lila broke free, slipping past the volunteer and running to the gate, her cries drawing more eyes. "Mama, it's you!" The gate, unsecured for the afternoon unload, swung open under her push. She barreled toward Elena, arms outstretched, the bear tumbling into the mud. Rex surged forward a step, then halted at Elena's taut leash, his body language a perfect hold. Protect, but wait. Elena caught the girl instinctively, kneeling to her level as the child buried her face in her poncho. "Shh, easy," she whispered, the words slipping out in that familiar lilt. The embrace was brief, seconds, no more, but witnesses multiplied, families at the door, contractors pausing their trucks, Ellis's scoff cutting sharp. "What the hell? Of Vasquez? That's fraternization." Grant's voice crackled over the radio, then summoned by Ramirez's earlier ping. "Report now." Elena released Lila gently, guiding her back to the mother, who scooped her up with apologies tumbling out. She gets confused. The flood, it's all mixed up in her head. But the damage rippled, the moment captured in sidelong stares, whispers already forming the narrative. Elena stood, saluting the gathering crowd out of habit, her face a mask of composure. Rex leaned against her leg, a grounding weight amid the scrutiny. Duty had blurred into something personal, the chain of command now a spotlight on her choices. As Grant arrived, striding from the command tent with clipped efficiency, Ellis filled him in first, his version laced with emphasis on the scene Elena had caused. The lieutenant's jaw set, eyes scanning the shelter like a crime site. "Vasquez, my office, bring the log." She nodded, falling in step, Rex at heel. The walk back felt endless, the sun now fully out, baking the ground and amplifying every footfall. Inside the tent, away from the eyes, Grant's debrief was procedural, times, actions, witnesses. "You know the regs on civilian contact. This could flag your clearance." Elena met his gaze steadily. "Sir, it was containment." The child approached. I de-escalated. "No excuses, just facts," the handler's creed, but Grant leaned forward, voice low. "Ellis says you encouraged it. Singing, hugging, that's not protocol." The accusation stung, twisting her intervention into insubordination. Rex sat alert beside her, sensing the undercurrent, his loyalty the one unassailable truth in the room. By evening, as the base lights hummed to life, the incident buzzed through the ranks, handlers in the mess defending her quietly, others nodding to Grant's line on discipline. Elena walked Rex through the cooling fields, the dog's pace matching her thoughtful stride. The child's recognition wasn't coincidence. Whispers hinted at Lila's mother, a former interpreter who'd crossed paths with Elena's unit years back, voices blending in memory. But voicing it meant unraveling threads better left tied, duty over disclosure. The reckoning loomed, a tribunal of sorts in the morning briefing, where actions would be weighed against orders. Eleanor scratched Rex's ears, the simple gesture a vow. In the rigid world of ranks and routines, conscience demanded a stand, even if it cost her the line she'd towed so carefully. "Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach." The morning briefing assembled under a sky scrubbed clean by the night's clearing winds, the parade ground still bearing faint scars from the storm, puddles reflecting the pale dawn light like scattered mirrors. Captain Harlan stood at the podium, his silhouette sharp against the rising sun, voice steady as he called the platoon to order. "Fall in! This isn't a drill, it's accountability." Boots scraped and splashed in unison as the unit formed ranks, the air crisp with the scent of dew-kissed grass and oiled rifles slung across shoulders. Eleanor stood at the front of her file, Rex sitting precisely at her left, his coat fluffed dry from an early towel down in the kennels. Her uniform was pressed, insignia gleaming, but the weight of the previous day's incident pressed heavier, a subtle tension in her squared shoulders. Harlan's eyes swept the formation, lingering on Elena before moving on. "Yesterday's events at the shelter require review. Security protocols were tested, civilian interactions, perimeter breaches. Lieutenant Grant report." Grant stepped forward, his tablet in hand, the screen's glow casting shadows on his face. He recited the facts with procedural detachment: time of the disturbance, the child's approach, Elena's response. Sergeant Vasquez intervened to contain the situation. However, the embrace and vocal exchange exceeded standard de-escalation guidelines. Witnesses confirm civilian emotional attachment, potentially compromising operational focus. Murmurs rippled through the ranks, quickly stifled by a sharp glance from the captain. Ellis stood 2 files over, his posture rigid, but a flicker of satisfaction crossed his features, brief, gone like a cloud shadow. Elena kept her gaze forward, chin level, as Harlan turned to her. "Sergeant, your account." She spoke clearly, words measured like a patrol report. "Sir, the child breached the gate during an unsecured unload." Rex alerted. "I secured her to prevent further escalation. The contact was minimal, seconds, to return her to her guardian. No classified information exchanged. Rex shifted slightly, his nose twitching toward the captain, as if gauging the room's undercurrents. Harlan nodded, but his expression remained unreadable, the chain of command's machinery grinding forward. "Noted. Private Ellis, your observation." The private stepped up, voice even but edged with rehearsed precision. "Sir, it looked like fraternization. The kid ran straight to her, calling her Mama. Vasquez didn't push back, let it play out in front of everyone." The words landed with calculated weight, drawing sidelong glances from the platoon. Ramirez, beside Ellis, stared at his boots, silent. Elena felt the scrutiny like a spotlight, the moral tension coiling tighter, her intent to protect clashing against the optics of indulgence. Duty demanded distance, yet compassion had bridged it in a heartbeat, the girl's plea echoing her own buried memories of loss, voices lost to borders and time. Harlan raised a hand, silencing the undercurrent. "This isn't a courtroom, it's a unit. Infractions get logged, patterns get addressed. Vasquez, you're restricted to kennel duties pending review. Grant, coordinate with base council. Dismissed." As the formation broke, soldiers dispersing to their assignments with clipped conversations. "Harsh call," one handler muttered to another. Elena led Rex toward the kennels, the gravel crunching underfoot. The path wound past the shelter, where families stirred in the morning light, steam rising from breakfast fires. Lila's mother stood at the entrance, folding linens with deliberate care, her eyes meeting Elena's across the distance. No wave, just a nod, gratitude laced with worry. Inside, the girl played quietly, her bear propped beside her, oblivious to the ripples her moment had caused. Rex whined softly, pulling toward the fence, but Elena corrected him with a gentle tug. "Heel, boy, eyes front." The kennel block loomed ahead, a low concrete structure humming with the low barks of other K9s settling into their runs. Elena secured Rex in his enclosure, the metal gate clanging shut with finality. She ran a hand along his flank, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. "Stay sharp," she murmured, the words a private ritual. Handlers' duties here were methodical, feedings, health checks, basic conditioning, no patrols, no real-world alerts. It felt like sidelining, a punishment veiled as precaution. As she logged the morning vitals, Specialist Torres from the contractor's crew approached the outer gate, his clipboard in hand. "Heard about the review? That kid, Lila, she's been asking for you. Says the dog's her guardian angel now." Elena paused, pen hovering over the form. "Appreciate the heads up, but regs are regs." Torres nodded, glancing back toward the shelter. "Fair, just her mom's story checks out. Lost her sister in a crossing years back, voice like yours from what the records say. Flood stirred it up. The revelations settled like dust after a convoy. Connecting fragments Elena had sensed, but not pursued. Lila's recognition wasn't delusion. It was echo, a human thread tangled in the web of deployments and displacements, but voicing it now would only deepen the scrutiny. Conscience versus clearance, the handler's eternal bind. By midday, the review escalated. Base Council arrived in an unmarked SUV, pulling up to the command tent with the quiet efficiency of internal affairs. Eleanor was summoned, Rex left behind in the kennel, his absence a hollow note in her stride. Inside the tent, the air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and printer ink, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Major Klein, the council officer, sat at a folding table flanked by Grant and Harlan, their faces masks of neutrality. "Sergeant Vasquez, this is informal, for now. Walk us through the incident again." She recounted it step by step, from Rex's alert to the gate swing, emphasizing containment over connection. Klein jotted notes, his pen scratching like radio static. "And the child's claim? Mama? Any prior association?" Elena hesitated a fraction, truth tempting the line. "None on record, sir. Possible misrecognition from stress." Grant interjected, "Witnesses say otherwise." Ellis reported encouragement. The lieutenant's tone was factual, but the implication stung. Her actions painted as favoritism, undermining the unit's cohesion. Harlan leaned in, voice low. "We're a team, Vasquez. One slip, and trust erodes from the top down." The moral test sharpened here. In the dim confines, obedience meant silence, letting the log bury the nuance. Conscience urged the full picture, risking her record. As the session wrapped, Klein stood. "We'll reconvene with statements. No patrols until cleared." Elena saluted and exited, the sun now high, baking the compound. Outside, Ellis drilled new recruits on the range, his commands barking sharp, authority unchallenged for now. Whispers followed her back to the kennels, handlers nodding support, but the chain's pressure evident in their averted eyes. Rex greeted her with a tail wag, nose pressing into her hand, his trust unyielding amid the institutional grind. Afternoon brought the public edge. Word leaked to the base newsletter. A routine update twisted into security incident at relief site. Handler under review. Soldiers scanned it on breaks, the article's dry prose amplifying the drama. Civilian breach, emotional entanglement. In the mess hall, conversations hummed. "Vasquez, she's solid." Ellis exaggerating? Ramirez approached her tray, voice low. "Captain's pulling statements. Your call on the kid's mom could clear you." Elena forked her rations methodically. "Chain first. Let it play." As dusk fell, Elena walked Rex on a short leash in the enclosed yard, the sky streaking orange over the fence. The dog's pace was steady, mirroring her resolve, but the day's weight lingered, the cost of integrity in a system that prized order above all. Lila's voice echoed faintly from the shelter's direction, a child's song carried on the breeze, blending with the evening call to quarters. The reckoning wasn't just personal, it rippled, testing loyalties, forcing the unit to confront where duty ended and humanity began. Elena knelt, clipping Rex's lead shorter. "We've got this," she whispered, the bond their anchor as the shadows lengthened. The evening air cooled rapidly as Elena guided Rex through the kennel yard, the gravel path crunching under their boots and paws in a familiar rhythm. Floodlights cast long shadows across the enclosures, where other canines paced their runs, their low whines blending with the distant hum of the base generators. Elena's hand rested lightly on the leash, feeling the subtle tension in Rex's muscles, a mirror to her own, coiled from the day's interrogations. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving a bruised purple sky streaked with the last traces of daylight, and the scent of damp earth lingered from the morning's mist. She kept her pace measured, eyes scanning the perimeter out of habit, even here in the confined space. Back in the barracks, the handlers' quarters buzzed with subdued energy. Radios tuned low to the evening news, cots creaking as men and women reviewed logs or sharpened focus for the next shift. Eleanor settled Rex into his kennel with a final pat, the metal gate latching with a soft click. "Rest up, partner," she said quietly, her voice echoing faintly off the concrete walls. He curled into his bedding, eyes following her, until she turned away. The isolation of kennel duty chafed. No patrols meant no purpose, just the repetitive cycle of checks and feeds that felt like marking time. She made her way to the common area, where Specialist Torres waited with a stack of papers, witness statements from the shelter incident, copied informally before they hit the official file. "Captain's office pushed for these," Torres said, sliding them across the scarred wooden table. His voice was low, mindful of the ears in the room. Elena scanned the top sheet. Ramirez's account, neutral but supportive. Sergeant contained the breach without escalation. Then Ellis's, worded to wound. Vasquez initiated contact, allowing the child to cling. Undermined discipline in front of civilians. Grant's addendum followed, framing it as a pattern. Handler's leniency risks unit integrity. She folded the pages neatly, tucking them into her pocket. Appreciate the lift. Chains tightening. Torres nodded, glancing toward the door, where shadows moved in the hall. Lila's mom, Maria, asked to speak. Says it could clarify the voice thing. But regs say no direct contact till cleared. Elena's jaw set, the moral pull sharpening. Maria's story tugged at threads she'd long buried. A deployment in the border regions, interpreters with voices like home, lost to rotations and risks unspoken. Revealing it might humanize the moment, prove the embrace was instinct, not indulgence. But it could drag civilians deeper into the review, blurring lines further. Duty whispered caution, conscience urged truth, the quiet voice that had guided her through darker fields. Sleep came fitfully that night, fractured by dreams of rain-slicked fences and a child's outstretched hand. Dawn broke with the sharp blast of the Reveille bugle, pulling Elena from her bunk before the first light fully crested the barracks windows. She suited up methodically, uniform aligned, boots laced tight, then headed to the kennels. Rex greeted her with a tail thump against the gate, his energy undimmed by the confinement. They ran a basic obedience drill in the yard. Sit, stay, heel, the commands crisp in the cool air. His responses were flawless, a reminder of the bond that no log could question. As she clipped him back in, Captain Harlan's aide appeared at the fence, tablet in hand. Sergeant, tribunal at 0900. Full uniform. Rex stays. The command tent stood squat and unyielding under the climbing sun, its canvas flaps tied back to allow air but not ease. Inside, the air hung heavy with the aroma of fresh-brewed coffee from a percolator on the side table and the faint ozone of electronics. Major Klein presided at the head, flanked by Harlan and a stone-faced JAG officer, Colonel Reyes. Grant sat to one side, Ellis and Ramirez as witnesses on folding chairs. Eleanor entered at attention, saluting sharply before taking her seat, the wooden legs scraping softly on the linoleum floor. No pleasantries. This was institutional justice, procedural as a weapons inspection. Record on, Klein announced, activating the digital recorder with a beep. Sergeant Vasquez, this hearing addresses the shelter incident of 14th October. Allegations, breach of protocol on civilian interaction, potential fraternization, and compromise of security posture. He nodded to Grant, who presented the evidence, photos from base security cams, grainy but clear. The gate swinging, Lila's rush, Elena's kneel. The child's advance was unprompted, Elena stated when prompted, her tone even, eyes on Klein. Rex alerted to movement, I intercepted to prevent injury. Contact lasted 4 seconds per my estimate. No information shared. Ellis leaned forward at his cue, voice steady under the lights. Sir, it was more. She spoke in a way that egged the kid on. Personal, like family. Families inside saw it as favoritism. Morale took a hit. Ramirez countered mildly. Private, the sergeant de-escalated. No harm done. The room tensed, the air thick with the unspoken. Ellis's resentment, rooted in his own stumbles during the build, now weaponized against her. Harlan interjected, his gaze piercing. Vasquez, your record's clean, exemplary even, but optics matter. This ripples to the platoon, to trust in handlers. Klein turned to Elena. The child's claim of recognition. Address it. Here it was, the ethical crux. She paused, weighing the silence. Sir, the girl was distressed from displacement. Voices carry echoes in stress, no prior connection on my end. Partial truth, protecting Maria from scrutiny. But Reyes pressed. Witnesses note similarity to a known interpreter profile. Coincidence? Elena held firm. Possible, sir, but speculation doesn't alter protocol adherence. The admission skirted the line, conscience yielding to chain, yet it planted the seed, forcing the tribunal to consider nuance over narrative. As statements wrapped, Klein adjourned for deliberation. Decision by 1400. Stand by. Elena saluted and exited, the sun now glaring off the tent's roof, heat rising from the ground in waves. Outside, the base pulsed with routine, Humvees rolling to posts, soldiers drilling in the distance with the rhythmic thud of boots. She made for the shelter on foot, protocol be damned for a visual check, no entry, just observation from the perimeter. Families bustled in the midday light. Laundry lines strung between poles, the scent of boiling rice wafting on the breeze. Lila played near the fence, tossing a ball to a makeshift goal, her laughter light. Spotting Elena, she froze, then waved hesitantly. Maria appeared, guiding her inside with a glance that held quiet solidarity. Ramirez caught up as Elena turned away. "Ellis is crowing in the mess. Says you're done." She nodded. Keeping stride, let him. Truth logs itself. But doubt gnawed. The cost mounting, her role sidelined, Rex's skills idled. Back at the kennels she ran diagnostics on his gear, harness straps, alert vests, the tactile work grounding her. Rex watched, head tilted, as if understanding the weight. The radio crackled then, Klein's voice summoning her back. Deliberation yielded a reprimand. Written to file, no suspension, but probation on civilian details. Pattern of overreach noted, Klein read. Recommend counseling on boundaries. Harlan added privately as she filed out, "Fight it if clear, Vasquez, but the unit needs you whole." Relief mixed with resolve. The slap was light, but the message clear. Institutional justice bent, not broke. Under pressure, Ellis's glare followed her from the tent, his victory hollow. As afternoon patrols resumed under watch, Elena and Rex took the east sector, the dog's nose questing freely again. The shelter loomed in view, a symbol now of the fragile balance, duty fortified by quiet acts of grace. By dusk, as the platoon regrouped for evening brief, whispers of reform stirred, handlers petitioning for clearer civvy protocols, Harlan nodding thoughtfully. Eleanor stood at ease, Rex at heel, the day's tension easing like fading light. Conscience had held, costing stripes but gaining ground, the bond with her partner a testament amid the ranks' unyielding order. The probationary haze settled over the following weeks, like the persistent fog that rolled in from the river valley, muting the sharp edges of Fort Harlan's routines. Elena's days blurred into a cycle of restricted duties, kennel maintenance, equipment inventories, and supervised walks for Rex in the enclosed yard, where the chain-link fences hummed faintly under the touch of wind. The air carried the earthy tang of turned soil from the training fields, mingled with the metallic bite of cleaning solvents as she scrubbed harnesses under the fluorescent lights of the gear shed. Rex paced beside her, his paws clicking softly on the concrete, his dark eyes tracking her every movement with that unwavering focus that needed no words. She felt his frustration in the way he pawed at the ground during their limited drills, a subtle restlessness that mirrored her own, bottled within the bounds of rank and restraint. Captain Harlan's private words lingered like a half-remembered order, "Fight it, if clear." Elena had weighed them during quiet evenings in the barracks, the low murmur of handlers' conversations filtering through the thin walls as she reviewed the tribunal transcript by flashlight. The reprimand stung not for its severity, a note in her file, no demotion, but for what it symbolized. A system's blind spots where compassion clashed with protocol and left scars on the faithful. Ellis, meanwhile, patrolled with renewed vigor, his commands barking sharper during joint exercises, as if the incident had armored him against his own shortcomings. Grant overlooked it, logging clean reports that painted the unit as seamless, but whispers in the mess hall told another story. Handlers, nodding to Elena over chow, their salutes lingering a beat longer, a silent tally of alliances forming in the shadows. One crisp morning, as the sun crested the horizon in a blaze of gold, painting the parade ground in warm hues, Elena was summoned to Harlan's office. The captain's tent stood apart from the main block, its canvas flaps tied open to catch the breeze, revealing stacks of files and a tactical map pinned to the wall. Harlan sat behind a field desk, his uniform sleeves rolled to the elbows, steam rising from a mug of black coffee. "Vasquez, at ease," he said, gesturing to the chair opposite. Rex sat at her heel, alert but calm, his ears flicking at the captain's voice. The air smelled of aged paper and the faint ozone from the base's electrical grid, underscoring the gravity of the moment. "I've reviewed the full statements," Harlan began, his tone measured, eyes meeting hers without judgment. "Klein's decision holds, but the petition from your team, it's gaining traction. Handlers want guidelines for civilian interfaces, especially in relief ops. Your incident highlighted the gap." Elena nodded, keeping her posture straight. "Sir, the chain held. I followed containment, but the optics—" She trailed off. The words unnecessary. Protocol's rigidity had exposed the human fray at the edges. Harlan leaned forward, tapping the desk. "Exactly." Ellis's report exaggerated, but it forced the issue. Base Command's drafting a memo. K9 demos for Civi Morale. Structured contact under oversight. You're the example. Positive if we frame it right. The proposition hung between them. A bridge from reprimand to reform. Elena felt the moral tension ease a fraction, like a taut line slacking under careful hands. Her actions, born of instinct, had rippled beyond the shelter, prompting the institution to adapt rather than punish outright. "I'd volunteer, sir. Rex and I can demonstrate. Alerts, obedience. Keep it professional." Harlan's mouth quirked in a rare half-smile. "Knew you would. Starts next week with the families. But tread light. Grant's watching." As she saluted and exited, Rex nudging her leg in approval, the weight lifted subtly. Loyalty wasn't just to orders, it was to the quiet evolutions that made the system bearable. Words spread through the platoon like radio chatter during a night op, clipped updates over PT runs, nods in the chow line. Ramirez approached her during afternoon inventory, his voice low amid the clatter of crates. "Heard about the demo. Ellis is fuming, says it's favoritism." Elena stacked a vest methodically, the leather creaking under her fingers. Let him focus on the mission. But the undercurrent simmered. During a routine perimeter check that evening, Ellis shadowed her path, his flashlight beam sweeping too close to Rex's flanks. "Still on light duty, Sarge? Dog's wasting his nose in here." Rex growled low, a rumble felt more than heard, and Eleanor corrected him sharply. "Private, eyes on your sector. That's an order." He backed off, but the exchange lingered, a reminder that reform sparked resistance in the ranks. The demo day arrived under a sky of scattered clouds. The shelter site transformed into an open-air training ground. Families gathered at a safe distance, chairs arranged in neat rows on the trampled grass, the air alive with the murmur of voices and the faint scent of wildflowers crushed underfoot. Lila sat front row with Maria, the girl's braids tied back neatly, her bear tucked under her arm. Eleanor and Rex took position at the center, her uniform crisp, commands delivered with the precision of years in the field. "Such!" she said clearly, and Rex bounded forward, nose to the ground, alerting to a hidden marker with a precise sit. The crowd watched in hushed awe, children leaning forward, the handler's bond on full display, no theatrics, just disciplined trust. As Rex circled back, Lila's hand shot up. "Can he come closer?" Maria nodded permission, and under Harlan's watchful eye, Elena signaled approval. Rex approached slowly, tail steady, allowing the girl a gentle pat, his fur warm under her small fingers, a single wag acknowledging the connection. No embrace this time, just the ritual of respect. A handler's cue, a dog's response. Grant observed from the sidelines, arms crossed, but even he nodded as the session wrapped, families applauding softly. Effective, he conceded later in debrief, his tone grudging, builds the bridge without crossing it. In the days that followed, the memo circulated, official protocol for K9-Civi interactions, crediting the Vasquez incident as catalyst. Elena's file noted the contribution. The reprimand balanced by commendation. Ellis received a quiet counseling on witness bias, his reports scrutinized henceforth. The unit shifted subtly. Patrols included morale checks at the shelter, handlers like Ramirez volunteering for demos, the chain of command flexing to encompass vulnerability. Elena walked Rex through the fields at dusk, the dog's stride lighter, the horizon stretching clear. Her hand trembled briefly on the leash, not from fear but release, the cost of integrity paid in full, yielding a legacy of measured change. One evening, as stars pricked the deepening blue, Maria approached the fence during Elena's off-duty rounds. "Lila sleeps better now," she said simply, her voice carrying the warmth of shared roots. "Thank you for standing in the rain." Elena nodded, Rex sitting alert between them. "Just duty, ma'am." But in the silence that followed, the bond transcended ranks. Loyalty forged in moments of quiet defiance, rippling through the institution like a well-executed flank. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Elena Vasquez reach those who still believe in honor. The months following the demo blurred into a steady cadence of patrols and protocols, the base's rhythm syncing with the turning seasons. Autumn leaves skittering across the parade ground like spent casings after a range day, the air sharpening with the bite of impending frost. Elena's probation lifted quietly in the November briefings, her file annotated with the new guidelines bearing her indirect imprint. Vasquez Protocol in the margins of the Ops Manual, a nod to structured civilian engagements that wove security with subtle outreach. Rex's harness gleamed under fresh polish during morning inspections, his alerts now part of scheduled morale rotations at the shelter, where families once confined to tents now moved with a measure of ease. The structure stood solid, its canvas walls patched against the wind, a testament to the flood's retreat and the unit's unyielding support. Elena led her first post-probation patrol with Rex at dawn, the mist rising from the river like breath from a suppressed rifle. Boots crunched on frost-kissed gravel as they circled the perimeter, radio clipped to her shoulder, crackling with position checks. "Alpha, clear on east flank." The dog's nose quested low, sifting through the layered scents of dew and diesel, his tail a metronome of focus. No incidents marked the route, but the subtle shift in the platoon's bearing was palpable. Handlers exchanging nods during chow, their salutes crisp yet lingering, acknowledging the quiet victory she'd carved from the reprimand. Ellis, reassigned to admin rotations after his own counseling, kept distance, his earlier barbs dulled to professional silence, the chain of command enforcing its own corrections. Captain Harlan called her to the command tent mid-morning, the interior warmed by a space heater humming against the chill. Maps unfurled across the table showed expanded relief zones, the shelter now a hub for neighboring outposts. "Vasquez, the higher-ups want you briefing the new handlers on Civi protocols," he said, handing her a folder stamped with base seal. "Your experience, it's doctrine now. Starts next week, Lackland Pipeline." Elena took the documents, her fingers tracing the embossed edges, the weight of legacy settling like a well-fitted vest. "Yes, sir. Rex and I will prep the demo sequence." Harlan's gaze held hers, approval unspoken, but evident in the slight incline of his head. "You've set a standard. Loyalty isn't blind, it's discerning. The unit's stronger for it." Word of the briefing assignment rippled through the ranks by evening formation, soldiers falling in under sodium lights that buzzed like distant rotors. Ramirez clapped her shoulder as they stacked arms, his voice low amid the shuffle. "Proud of you, Sarge," Ellis heard, face like he swallowed gravel. Elena allowed a faint smile, clipping Rex's lead for the walk back. The dog's stride matched hers, paws padding softly on the cooling path, his presence a constant amid the evolving order. At the kennels, she ran their routine. Health log, brush down, the ritual grounding her as the base quieted, lights out calls echoing, the low whir of generators fading into night. The Lackland briefing unfolded 2 weeks later, a grey December morning at the training annex, where fresh-faced handlers assembled in a hangar echoing with the scent of oiled floors and wet dog fur from the outdoor runs. Elena stood at the front, Rex sitting precisely at her side, his ears perked as she outlined the protocol. Containment first. Always. But recognition of human factors prevents escalation. "Watch," she signaled, and Rex demonstrated a civvy alert, nose to a simulated breach marker, sit command locking him in place without aggression. The group leaned in, notebooks open, absorbing the blend of discipline and empathy she'd forged from the rain-soaked standoff. Questions came clipped and focused. How do you balance the child's approach with regs? Eleanor fielded them evenly, drawing from the tribunal's lessons, no embellishment, just procedural truth. Trust your partner. Rex reads intent before words do. One trainee, a young specialist with a K9 pup at heel, raised a hand. "Heard about the shelter incident. Changed everything, right?" Elena nodded, keeping her tone mission-focused. "It highlighted gaps. Now we fill them. Structured, secure." As the session wrapped, the instructor, a grizzled master sergeant from her early days, approached, saluting. "Vasquez, you're mentoring the next wave. That's impact." She returned the salute, Rex nudging her calf in quiet affirmation, the hangar doors rattling open to admit a gust of cold air, carrying the promise of broader horizons. Back at Fort Harlan by week's end, the transformation crystallized in small, institutional shifts. Joint exercises with aid workers, K9 units integrated into community briefs, the chain of command adapting without fanfare. Elena's evenings now included informal handler sessions in the barracks, swapping field stories over lukewarm coffee, tales of bonds tested, morals weighed. Leela and Maria visited during a family day event, the girl now 9, her braids longer, clutching a drawing of Rex under a rainbow fence. "For you," she said shyly, pressing it into Elena's hand. The sergeant knelt, the paper crinkling softly. "We'll hang it in the kennel. Good work." No embrace, but the nod from Maria spoke volumes, gratitude woven into the fabric of routine. Ellis crossed paths with her during a final perimeter overlap, the frost glittering under moonlight as they traded sectors. "Heard you're the protocol now," he said, voice neutral, eyes on the horizon. Elena kept stride. "Just doing the job, Private." He nodded, a beat of silence stretching before he added, "Learned from it. Won't log assumptions again." The concession hung, unforced, the unit's quiet reform claiming another convert. As he peeled off, Elena scratched Rex's ears, the dog's warmth cutting the chill. Integrity's cost had been high, scrutiny, sidelining, but its yield was a system tempered, stronger in its flexibility. Winter deepened, snow dusting the parade ground in thin veils, but Elena's role expanded, lead handler for relief ops, her voice guiding patrols through procedural nuance. Rex aged gracefully, his alerts as sharp as ever, their bond the unspoken core of every lesson. In the handler's mess, one snowy evening, Harlan raised a mug during informal toast. "To the ones who stand in the rain and change the forecast." Laughter rippled, restrained but real, the platoon united in the glow of lanterns. Elena met his eyes, Rex at her feet, the legacy etched in every salute. Every command, a symbol of moral strength amid the ranks' enduring discipline. The shelter, now a permanent fixture, hosted its first holiday gathering under clear skies, families and soldiers mingling under oversight, voices blending in cautious harmony. Elena watched from the perimeter, Rex alert beside her, the child's recognition long faded into memory, replaced by trust earned through structure. Duty and conscience, once at odds, now aligned, the institution wiser, her path illuminated by the quiet light of redemption. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of She Stood in the Rain outside the shelter until a child recognized her voice and ran to her. See you in the next one.